everyone, it's Julia. Welcome back to my channel. I often get asked whether something is washable, and the best thing to do is just to test it and find out. I wanted to test a watercolor, just regular watercolor palette on fabric, wash it, and just see what happens. I'm going to be using a fabric medium to mix in with the watercolor. And I'm going to be using this fabric. I found this approximately 6 months or so ago. If I can find it again, I'll link it down below if anybody else wants to try it. It has a folk art look to it, and I just really love it. I want to see if I can do like a folk art styled barn or something, a scene on this once I've watercolored it. For my watercolor, I'm going to be using my koi set. This is just a student grade, and it's a smaller, like a field size. It's kind of fun. It does come with a water brush. And I'm going to be listing all the products that I am using down below, including this fabric if I can find it for you again. But just know that any watercolor palette that you might have on hand, I would just go ahead and just try it. I'm going to be using my fabric medium. This is the golden GAC 900, but again, there are so many different brands of fabric mediums. You can usually find it where there's craft paint. Even Walmart carries a brand, I believe. So, you know, just look around. I'm going to be using a watercolor brush. This is a size 12 round, and it's a big size brush. I'm going to try to get it real juicy and just have this paint just flow on this piece. And then I use a white plate that I just pick up at either a thrift store or the dollar store. So I hope you join me in this. Let's get started. I have my jug of water off to the side there. And I'm going to be first spraying my palette with this continuous mister. This mister has a real fine mist to it. I love it. I use it a lot for ironing as well. If I can find one, I'll link it down below for you. It's a great tool for your sewing room. I'm picking up different colors of green now and just adding quite a bit of water with it. Now grabbing my fabric medium and just dropping a couple, 3 drops in each one. Just mixing that up. And back to adding some more color or more paint in these different puddles here. I ended up using quite a bit of paint for this. It goes quite quickly. I forgot to show this, but I also misted that fabric. So the fabric has been misted as well, so it is damp. And then just going through and adding the color. Just sprayed it again. You want it just to continue to spray the fabric just to make sure that it stays a little bit moist while you're adding this watercolor. This was really fun. I just so thoroughly enjoyed it. Again, lifting some more color off my palette there and putting it on this white plate. And notice how everything's just running together on my plate. It doesn't really matter because it kind of runs together on the fabric as well. Here's a close-up of it as I'm working. I did something about painting and coloring. I'm such a kid at heart. But here's what it looks like once it's still wet, but all the paint is added. And notice how I left the white all the way around it. I just thought that was kind of neat, just keeping some of it white. The edges white. Now I'm adding some more of this golden fabric medium right on the top of it. This fabric medium is a little sticky. I don't know if you've worked with it or not. And then you also have to heat set it. So at this point my fabric is still a little damp, but it has dried for a little while. And now I'm just using a piece of parchment paper from my kitchen and just heat setting this with medium heat. And you do want to heat set it for 3 to 5 minutes. And now here's what it looks like before it goes into the wash. And this is what it looked like after the wash. I threw it in with a load of towels and I put it on medium heat, both in the wash and the dryer. I do have a piece of warm and natural batting that I'm going to be putting on the back of this. I want to do some free motion stitching now and just quilting those peaks. I'm just going to be using white thread just to give it a quilted look. Now when I look at this, it did lighten a little bit, but I really love that watercolor look on this fabric, and how just so cool that you're able to just use regular watercolor on fabric and still have it washable. I'm at my sewing machine now. I have my free motion foot on. I have my feed dogs dropped, and my white thread is on. I do have a white thread on in the bobbin as well. Just using all-purpose thread here. I believe it's like a 50 weight. And just outlining these little peaks and valleys. And here's what it looks like. I just did the ones that I colored. Now it's on to my design. I drew out these folk art looking barns and houses. I'm using Heat and Bond light to trace each of these little outline, these little pieces. I don't show all that. It's really piddly. If I were to do this again, I would not have used Heat and Bond light. I would have used my Steam-A-Seam 2. Steam-A-Seam 2 acts as like a post-it note. It is repositionable, and it has a tacky back to it. Easier to work with these little fiddly pieces. But I got it to go. I have a tendency to hoard my Steam-A-Seam 2 because it is quite a bit more expensive than the Heat and Bond light. But I got to get over it. I got to use it. Just adding some of these little itty bitty tree trunks now. Just removing that backing and placing those pieces where it needs to be. Everything is ironed on now, and I have my scene on my background. I do have my heat erase pen now, and I'm filling in some of the detail. I'm going to be taking this to my sewing machine, and I am going to be adding all this applique with black thread and free motion stitching. Adding a picket fence here to the front of this barn. And again, this is all going to be just drawn on with my black thread at the sewing machine. This heat erase pen will all disappear with the iron after I'm done working. I'm done with all my stitching. I didn't show that, but here's all my stitching. Everything has been outlined in black thread, and all my little detail has been added to my design. This is probably one of my favorite projects. I really enjoyed it. And I turned it into a pillow. This is a pillow cover. I just have an envelope back on the back of it. And I have some pictures here at the end. Thank you everybody who's joined me today. I hope this has opened up some doors and just given you some ideas to experiment with watercolor on fabric. Have a creative week. Bye for now.